Hello everyone, I hope you're having a great day. I am Angela and welcome to A Little Life of Books. So today we are going to be doing the mid-year book freakout tag. This one, quite a lot of people have done it quite early, I'd say. I saw people doing it from the start of June. However, I would say that midway through the year would be the end of June, start of July. So I've read all the books I have for the first half of the year and I now feel like I am ready to do the mid-year book freakout tag. So quite a lot of questions to get through, so I will try to be kind of quick so we're not here all day. The first question, however, I'm afraid I am going to cheat a little. The first question is, what is the best book you have read so far in 2020? Now, I couldn't pick one. I really struggled, and so I managed to narrow it down to 4. So, you're getting 4. If you think that's cheating too much, then sorry, but I really just couldn't narrow it down. So the books I have are The Fifth Season by Anke Jamison. Originally, I didn't think I could include this because I thought I started it at the very end of last year and I thought I actually finished it on New Year's Eve. I didn't. Turns out, look, from looking at my Goodreads, I actually read it all this year. So very excited about this book. Absolutely love it. You'll be hearing more about Anke Jamison later on in this book tag, so I will not be speaking too much about this, but Fifth Season, fantastic fantasy book, part of the first part of the Broken Earth trilogy. Would highly recommend. Excellent representation for all sorts, basically. It's a book that's so popular, I'm sure you are sick to death of hearing about it, but anyways, I loved it. This is the first one. The second one is, I'm sure we all know I love this based on the title of my channel, but it is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. This book I had heard so much about, and I'll be honest, I was a little bit intimidated about reading it because it is quite thick. How long is it? 720 pages it is, so it really is quite long, and I did read it part audiobook, part physical copy. This is a literary fiction novel which follows a group of 4 friends, though primarily focuses on one called Jude. And it's about them. It starts off with them in college, and they live in America. It starts with them in college and it follows them throughout their life. I mean, everybody knows it's like a horrific story. They do not have the easiest of lives. I would highly recommend you to read it if you think that it's something that would interest you. Don't be intimidated by the size. I would recommend going along with the audiobook as well. I can't remember who the narrator was I listened to, but they were very good anyway. But yes, A Little Life. The third book I have in my top 1 of 2020 is The Trip by Nick Cutter. Nick Cutter is a pen name, by the way. I can't remember the author's real name, but anyways, The Trip by Nick Cutter. This book was I think it was originally featured on maybe Books and Lala's channel, and then Gabby Reads. I can't remember, but I got the recommendation mainly from Gabby Reads. I actually read this on my Kindle, however I loved it so much that I bought the new copy, and this actually just came in the post today. Very exciting. This is a horror novel, like a body horror kind of one, about this group, well, a troop of scouts. I think there are 4 of them plus their scout master, and they go on like a wilderness survival training weekend thing that scouts do to this island called Falstaff Island, which is just off the coast of Canada. When they are there, a man arrives on the island who is very hungry. He's actually emaciated, just saying how hungry he is, how much he wants to eat. Doesn't matter how much he eats, he's constantly hungry. He's there like eating the sand or the dirt and whatnot, and they realise that he's not just hungry, he's actually really quite sick. And so the novel is about the boys and their scoutmaster trying to sort of not catch the disease that this man has, and about how they sort of interact with each other, how do they change, how do their relationships change throughout the weekend, all the things that happen. It's actually told part at the time and part also a little bit in the future, which is really interesting. I absolutely loved this book. A lot of body horror, a lot of things crawling under the skin, etc. It sort of, the description of it reminded me a little bit of Lord of the Flies. However, when I was reading it, it wasn't quite as Lord of the Flies as I was expecting. Anyways, fantastic book. The final one I don't have a physical copy of because I read it on my Kindle. I do have a physical copy on the way as well. Apparently that's what I do. And that is Pet Sematary by Stephen King. So this is as described by Stephen King, it is his scariest novel. It is about a family, so there's a mum, a dad and 2 children. The dad is a doctor and he gets a job being a university doctor, so they move to a new town, and behind their house is this pet cemetery where people for generations have been burying their pets. And this is a story, it's quite difficult to describe actually without sort of giving too much away, but it is horrible. It's fantastic, but also horrible. There's lots of scary things happen, lots of mysteries. What's going on at the pet cemetery? Who is who's telling the truth, what's happening? You just don't really know. I don't really want to spoil anything because it's so fantastic. I believe there is at least one film or movie, sort of TV adaptation of this. I'm not entirely sure what, but I haven't seen. I've only read the book. Anyways, loved it. We will finally get on to question number 2. Now, there were quite a few I could have chosen for question number 2. For example, The Obelisk Gate, which is the second part of the 5th season. However, I didn't want this to be too heavy on the Anke Jamison. And so I chose my another favourite sequel, and that was The Two Towers by J.R.R. Tolkien. So this is the second part of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Now, some people might get a little bit annoyed that I've chosen this one because technically the Lord of the Rings is one book, the whole thing is one book. However, I'm choosing to accept that this is a sequel. I've decided I'm using it as my favourite sequel. I absolutely hate the edition I have. It is so small, it's like a mass market paperback size, and so it makes it not particularly comfortable to read. Also, the page count continues on from Fellowship of the Ring. So like it starts on page, what page is that? 537, which was just a little mild inconvenience, but it was enough to annoy me anyway. Anyways, loved it. I watched the films when they first came out, and last year I read The Fellowship of the Ring. This year I've read so far The Two Towers. Absolutely love it. I must say I preferred the first half, which follows Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, etc. I preferred that much more compared to the second half, which follows Sam and Frodo. I didn't really like Frodo in the films. I think he comes across much better in the books, and so I definitely enjoyed the second half of it more than I thought it was going to when I realised it was all based on Sam and Frodo. However, I still prefer the main company. But yes, absolutely love that. Hoping to get to Return of the King soon. You'll be hearing about that a little bit later anyway. Question 3, a new release not yet read. I'm afraid we're back on the Anke Jamison here. The City We Became. This one is another sort of fantasy, but in this one it's more of an urban fantasy where it follows sort of New York, but each of the boroughs can be a different person. Like they become a physical person. I'll be honest, I had no idea what this book was about when I ordered it. But I ordered it because Anke Jamison is just an automatic buy for me now. It has had phenomenal reviews. Everybody's talked about it. I'm sure we're all sick to death of hearing about it, but I'm desperate to read it, so I'm gonna read it. This is one that I am very excited to get to soon. Question number 4, most anticipated release for the second half of the year. This one was a little bit of a difficult one. I don't tend to follow that many books that are getting released unless they're from my absolute favourite authors, and those are sort of, well, now Anke Jamison, but also Karen Slaughter, and she's just had a book that's been released, so I very, very much doubt will have any getting released in the second half of the year. And so the book I chose, I don't obviously have it yet. It's called The Wild Silence by Rena Rin. So I read The Salt Path this year. It's a memoir, and there's Ray and her husband, and they go through just a really, really tough time. Her husband is diagnosed with a terminal degenerative illness. Can't remember off the top of my head what it is, and they also become bankrupt. And so what they decide to do is they're homeless, and so they decide they're going to walk the coastal path, like the south of England, from like Wales and south of England coastal path. And they decide to do that, and that's what the Salt Path is all about. It's just following them there. The Wild Silence is what happens after they finish their walk along the coastal path. So I'm really excited just to see what happened next in their lives. So that, I have it pre-ordered. Comes out in October, I want to say. I think. But anyways, Wild Silence by Rena Rin. Question number 5. I'm looking down here because I have my notes on what the questions are down here. My biggest disappointment. again, I couldn't put this down to one, but two. The first one I read an audiobook, so I don't have a copy of it, but that is the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society. Now, I was actually really excited about this because there was a film made of it a few years ago. I never didn't see it, but I thought it looked quite good. I thought the name was a bit too long in my opinion, but I thought the film looked good. I got the Kindle copy of it ages ago, a couple of years ago, and then I actually listened to the audiobook this year, and it just was not quite what I was expecting. I don't really know what I was expecting, but it wasn't that, and I actually ended up giving it 1 star. I really did not enjoy listening to that, and if it wasn't for the audiobook, I would not have continued. So there's that, which I thought was really disappointing. And the other one I was really disappointed by was Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I have this lovely copy. I got it in a really nice bookshop in Edinburgh as like a little birthday gift to myself. What a waste, apparently. But I really didn't like it. I felt like it was like Frankenstein, the man. I felt like he was very whiny throughout, very woe is me, the world's against me. And whilst I'm sure that'll be the point, 'cause, you know, the whole point of it, Frankenstein, we all know the story of Frankenstein. That's there's Dr. Frankenstein, and he creates a monster where he uses sort of dead body parts, sews them together and creates this man who then sort of wakes up and then terrorizes everywhere, and people come after him with pitchforks. Anyway, that's not entirely what the story actually is, but that's exactly what I thought it was. I was picturing people with pitchforks and everything. I thought the monster was going to be horrific. I've never actually seen a Frankenstein adaptation. Maybe that's why I was a little disappointed. Anyways, either way, I was really disappointed because I felt he was so whiny throughout, and I also just felt there wasn't enough interaction. There was a lot of actual Frankenstein being ill, and then the Frankenstein monster, it bothers me that it doesn't have a name. He's called the Frankenstein monster. It does bother me it doesn't have a name. I understand that's the point of who's the monster, who's the man, but he didn't really interact very much. Now I know that he couldn't speak the language, etc. There was a lot of him observing, but overall I just really didn't like it. I also didn't particularly like the format of somebody else telling the story. Overall a disappointment. Again, another 1 star. I rarely give out 1 stars, but I've had 2 of them so far this year. Both of those books, both very disappointing. The next one, biggest surprise. My biggest surprise was The Silver Linings Playbook by Matthew Quick. This book, I think actually in my head it was The Blind Side, and maybe that's why I was surprised by it. In my head it was Sandra Bullock from the movie, and there was a American football playing guy. That's what I thought it was. That's not this book. That is The Blind Side. This is The Silver Linings Playbook. But it is also to do with football, American football, in that the main character in this is obsessed with the Eagles. Is that the team in Philadelphia? I'm sure it's called the Eagles. I don't know if it's the something Eagles or the Eagles something. The Philadelphia Eagles. Oh, can you tell I'm not American? So yes, The Silver Linings Playbook. I just thought this was so brilliantly written, in that it's about a man who had a brain injury, and it's about him trying to sort of live his life, and his family are struggling to adapt because he was sort of an adult out of the house, you know, married, own house, etc. Then something happened. I won't say what happened. He got a brain injury, and it's about him. He's just out of like a hospital or some sort of institution, I'm not entirely sure, and it's about him sort of trying to get on in the world, and about through his obsession with the Eagles football team and how that kind of helps him come along, and about the relationship he has with his therapist. I absolutely loved this book, and that's why it was a big surprise. Possibly just because I thought it was a different book, but either way, excellent book, would recommend. And I got it so cheap because it was I think it was like 50 pence or something from a charity, so ideal. Right, next one, fave new author, Anke Jamison. I've mentioned her I think 3 times now so far in this video. I really don't have anything else to say. She is fantastic. She's now an automatic buy. Absolutely love her. I've read all of the Broken Earth trilogy. I've read all of the Inheritance trilogy. I've just recently got the Dreamblood duology and the book How Long Till Black Future Month, which I'm intending on reading very soon. I love her, think she's great. The women can do no wrong in my eyes so far. So Anke Jamison, new favourite. Newest fictional crush. I don't get fictional crushes. I just think that a fictional crush for me was maybe more when I was sort of in high school and you were reading the vampire book kind of things. Like, I'm 27 years old now. I just think I'm a little bit past that. I mean, you could be 27 years old and still have fictional crushes, that's fine, but I just think for me it's not really a thing, so I don't have one of those. I also don't have one for a newest favourite character. I really struggled. I don't tend to become that attached to individual characters. It's the overarching stories that I like, and so I just don't have an answer for newest favourite character, which is a little bit disappointing, but I couldn't find one. I have answers for all the other questions. On to question 10 now. A book which made you cry. Now, this is a book, oh my goodness, it went one way and then it was going along, it was trundling along, it was good, I was enjoying it, and then my goodness did it take a turn and I was sobbing, like actual physical tears, sobbing, struggling to read the page because it took a turn and it just upset me so much. Anyways, that book was You Were There Too by Coleen Oakley. This is an American edition. It's very, very floppy, and I actually did not enjoy the experience of that because it felt like I was having to work quite hard to like physically keep the pages at a comfortable position for me. So that wasn't great. It also feels kind of funny. It's got a sort of a matte finish. It's like a phone case. It's like a non-stick phone case. It doesn't slip out your hands. That's what it feels like. I'm not entirely a fan of the copy I have, but the book in itself, oh my goodness. So we follow this woman, Mia, and her husband. They have just moved to a new town. They have suffered, I think, 2 miscarriages, and they're really, really struggling to kind of conceive and carry a baby full term, and so it's about their life trying to conceive and how their marriage evolves, and a lot about that. And the woman Mia, she actually is having dreams in which a man frequently occurs, the same man, very vivid, and she sees him in this new town. She's just in a shop, I don't know what she's buying, tomatoes I think it is, something to do with tomatoes, can't remember. Anyways, she's buying something and then she just sees him. She sees this man, and it's about, does she stick with her husband whom she loves and who is a fantastic man, or does she kind of see meeting this man from her dreams as fate sort of intervening in her life, and does she then leave her husband for this man she's been dreaming about? It was so interesting reading about all the different struggles, because her husband, he's a doctor, he also has struggles related to his job. It's just, the whole thing is just fantastic. I cannot recommend this book enough. You Were There Too, Coleen Oakley. I was sobbing, absolutely sobbing. A book that made you happy. I don't have a physical copy of this because I read it, listened to the audiobook, and that is The Salt Path by Rena Rin. I've already mentioned it when I mentioned the book I was most anticipated release. This is the part where they're going on the coastal walk. I absolutely loved it. It's possibly isn't a book that's kind of supposed to make you quite as happy because, you know, they're bankrupt, like they're really struggling, they're extremely poor, they're homeless. But I just think, like, you know, they're finding the joys in the little things and hearing about them, and I just felt like there was such a positive message about it. I really enjoyed it. So yeah, book that made me happy, The Salt Path by Rena Rin. Most beautiful. Again, I couldn't pick one, so I picked 2, and I think they're beautiful for different reasons. The first one is, oh wait, which author am I going to choose? Have a guess. There we go. Anke Jamison. This is How Long Till Black Future Month, and this cover I think is absolutely beautiful. Like, look how beautiful this girl is. Now, I usually really dislike covers which have people's faces on them. I'm not a fan of it, do not enjoy it, always try to avoid. However, I just thought this one was beautiful. I'm not sure if it's because, I think it's her hair. I've mentioned this in another video, but I think it's her hair. I just think it's such a strong profile picture of this beautiful woman, and I think it's, I don't really know what it is, but I absolutely love this cover. Phenomenal. The second book is The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. Now this one is very UK paperback Sanderson-esque. I'm not sure if it's maybe the same illustrator. cover illustration by Jung Shan. I don't know if that's the same person, but either way I think it's beautiful. I love the wispiness. I love that we've got our main well, I'm assuming this is going to be Rin, our main character, here on it, but I don't know. Either way, I absolutely love this edition of Poppy War. Then the final question, we're finally to the last question. This has been a long time, this is over 20 minutes. Book that I need to read by the end of the year. Now, there are loads of books that I would love to read by the end of the year, but there are two that I'm challenging myself to actually read by the end of the year. The first one being Return of the King, the final part of the Lord of the Rings trilogy by J.R.R. Tolkien. This one, again, I worried that I was going to put it off because I don't like this physical copy. It's part of the same one as the Two Towers. It's mass market paper size. I need to break the spine. I don't like doing that. But I love the story, and so I'm really desperate to do it. Only this much of it is actually the book. This is all appendices, maps, etc., giving you brief histories, things like that. And I'm really, really looking forward to finishing reading the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And so there we go, Return of the King. And the final book, weighs a ton, and it is The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. I am desperate to get into Brandon Sanderson. I haven't read anything by him yet, and this possibly is not the correct place to start. I do have Skyward and Starsight up there, but this is the one I want to read. I really want to read this one. I'll be honest, whenever people talk about this, they never actually talk about the story. Apparently there are too many characters, there's too big a plot to actually just to talk about it. I could read the back, but I'm not sure how helpful that's actually going to be. I'm sure we've all heard of The Way of Kings. This is, again, the American version. I got this because the British version is split into two books. I'm just not a fan of that. Like, if I finish a physical book, I expect that to be the end of the story unless it's a series. I don't expect to be only halfway through a book when I get to the end of the physical book, and so I ordered this copy. I also think it looks really good. I like it. Not such a fan of this sticker on here, but you know, what can you do? This is a massive big floppy paperback, very American. I'm not entirely sure I'm a fan of that, but you know, I shall find my way through it. But yes, desperate to read this by the end of the year. I think I'm going to need to actually start quite soon because my second half of the year is going to be quite busy from sort of mid-August until the end of the year. I will get a couple of weeks or a week in October when I won't be so busy, but apart from that I'm going to be really busy. And so I will need to probably start this quite soon because this is not going to be a quick read. I think this is going to be a, you know, read it over a few months type of book. So yeah, that is the final book. I've answered all 15 questions, cheated on some of them by giving extra answers, and I didn't actually answer 2 of them. So did I succeed in the mid-year book freakout tag? I don't know. You decide. Who actually knows? Is succeeding just taking part? I don't know. If you have done this tag, let me know down below in the comments so I can have a look at yours. Have you read any of these books? Do you agree with my answers? Do you disagree with my answers? What are your opinions on some of the books I love, some of the books I really did not enjoy this year? Let me know down below. Anyways, thank you for watching. This was a really long one. We're at about 25 minutes now. So thank you very much for sticking around to the end. I hope you have a great day. Goodbye.